Alright guys, Billy here with Good Breeze. Today we're going to talk about kite surfing in the ocean, especially geared towards beginner and intermediate riders. So this is going to teach you the basics on what you need to know on how to get through waves. We're going to talk about equipment, we're going to talk about conditions, we're going to talk about getting started on the board, and one of the main things I want to brush on is actually getting up and through the waves, and that includes big whitewash or small little chop, that kind of thing. So personally, I've been kiting since about 2003. I've done tons of downwinders. I've spent the majority of my kiting career in the ocean. I even learned in the ocean. And so I love riding a surfboard in the ocean. It's my favorite discipline when it comes to kiteboarding. So most of the days I still go out today are big waves, strong winds. I prefer to be on a small kite. So that's just a little bit about me. I've taken many people on their first downwinders. So people that have learned to kite, have never been in the ocean. I've taken them out in the ocean, done downwinders with them, babysit them, help them get back up if they've crashed their kite, help them get through the waves. So I have a lot of experience here, and I'm going to give you a couple of those tips and tricks. How do you know if you're ready for the ocean? The skill sets that I think are very important before taking your first ocean session are being able to probably should be able to stay upwind. You don't necessarily have to be, but that's going to show that you're a competent and skilled kiteboarder. You really want to be comfortable with the kite. That's the number one thing in my mind. You need to be able to fly that kite with your eyes closed, literally. If you're in a wave and you're getting worked by the whitewater, you need to be able to keep the kite up and keep it above your head. So learning good kite control is essential for taking your first steps into the ocean, and you really want to be able to do whatever you need to do with that kite whenever you want to do it. So you need to be very comfortable with jibes, so turning around real quickly. There's a thing that I call a chicken jibe, where you're running from the waves. So you have to be really proficient in turning around and going the other direction. You also really want to be able to do jumps, and that doesn't have to be on a surfboard necessarily, or even strapless or anything like that, but I would suggest being able to do little jumps on a twin tip before you take your first sessions in the ocean, especially if there's big waves, because the idea of getting over a wave is very similar to like a small little jump. You don't have to be jumping 20, 30 feet, doing mega loops or anything like that, but just being able to do little hops and little on-demand pops off the water. The other thing I think is important is to be able to ride toe side, especially if you're riding a surfboard in the ocean, or at least being able to switch your feet really quick from heel side to the opposite heel side, so that you can switch and go opposite direction without having to think about it or falling often. So I think those are the most important skills that you're really going to want to master before you take your first steps into the ocean. All right, so the next thing to consider when kiting in the ocean is conditions. You really want to pay attention to wind direction, wave size, and currents. These are the most important factors. So when it comes to wind direction, the ideal direction is either a side-on or a side-shore wind. Those are going to make it the easiest to get through the waves. It's also going to be one of the more fun directions for actually riding waves. When it comes to straight onshore wind, you run into the problem of being able to actually get out through the waves, because the wind is pushing you the same direction as the waves, and it just keeps pushing you, and it makes it really hard to go upwind and actually get out into where the waves are breaking. So if your first few sessions, I'd say avoid onshore winds for the ocean. And you also want to probably avoid offshore winds. There's a few exceptions to this depending on location, but typically offshore or side-off winds are fairly gusty, and it just makes it very inconsistent, and it can also be dangerous. If something goes wrong, you're being blown out to sea, and it's going to be very difficult to get in. So I would avoid offshore or side offshore winds in your first time going out in the ocean. The other thing to think about is the size of the waves. Your first few sessions, you want to find a day where maybe the wind just started, there's not a lot of ground swell, so there hasn't been a lot of time for the waves to get big and build up energy, and just kind of a day where it's side on, side shore, and small little crumblers. That's going to be the ideal days to go out on your first sessions in the ocean. You don't want to go out on a day where the waves are big, massive. It's just going to make it harder, more dangerous, and more challenging. The other thing to consider is a current. So a nearshore current really affects the power in your kite. If the water's moving really fast, the same direction as the wind, you're going to lose power in your kite. So you may need to size up on your kite size just to make sure you have the similar power that you're expecting. And so you can usually see this by just watching on the beach. You can see the water moving. You can talk to other kiters who are out there, or sometimes there's even buoys and things you could check to get an idea of this. But just think that if the wind's blowing really hard side shore, there's probably going to be a side shore current. You may want to size up a kite size. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is gear. How to choose the right gear, what I prefer, that type of thing. So in the session you're going to see the footage of today, I was on the Slingshot Fuse. I love this kite. It's a wave specific kite, even though I've also had a really good time with it on the twin tip. but it is a great kite for the waves because it is fast, it's maneuverable, and it'll drift with you. When I say it drifts, it means it kind of, you can pull the bar in, you can go towards the kite, and it'll stall without actually like stalling and falling out of the sky. It also has a lot of D-power. When you push that bar out, you want that kite to turn off. That way, if you're on a wave, riding a wave, you can turn off your power and use the power of the wave. It also is very helpful when you're going out through the waves. So I really think that riding a wave-specific kite, especially if you're riding in the waves with a surfboard, is gonna make a big difference and help you have a better experience. The next thing I'll talk about is your surfboards. So there's a lot of different surfboard options, a lot of different preferences on that. Personally, I usually like boards that are lightweight but still strong. Usually the ones that don't even have inserts, like this one here. This is the Whip SLS, a very popular, great board by Duotone. But you want to make sure it's going to be a strong board. So if you're just buying some surfboard off the shelf, like it's a normal actually surfboard and not a kite surf specific, you got to make sure that it's either epoxy or some sort of carbon wrapped. And if you grab a regular polyurethane board, you're probably going to break it. They're not built for that kind of constant pressure. So most kite surfboards that you buy from a kite brand are going to be built pretty tough and made for this type of stuff. Some are made for more strapless specific, like airs and flips and things like that, whereas some are made with inserts, going to be beefed up a little bit, going to be a little bit heavier, and are going to be more designed for riding with straps. On days where it's really big and choppy, I prefer something with a little bit of weight because the wind can kind of blow the board out from underneath your feet if the board's too light. Days where it's kind of smaller, lighter winds, I prefer a little bit lighter weight, more playful board that I can kind of pop little airs and maybe try little spin tricks with. So picking the right equipment is very important for that. The other thing that we talk about a lot is leash versus no leash. And I'm talking about leash on the board to your ankle. When you surf, you wear an ankle leash, to make sure your board doesn't run away from you. The beauty of kite surfing is you have your kite to get back to your board if you fall. So you'll see a lot of times I fall and my board just goes way out into shore. As long as there's no surfers, other people that you have to worry about, people swimming, it's probably safer to not wear a leash because you don't want to be getting worked in the waves with the leash and getting it wrapped around you or getting wrapped through your kite lines. So you want to just be very proficient at body dragging. Get to your board fast. As soon as I fall, I get my kite up high and I start looking for my board. I see it and I start body dragging after it right away. I don't let time pass. I want to get to my board as quickly as possible, get that board under my feet and go and get back moving so the waves can't take me out or my board can't take out anybody else and it doesn't go too far. So there are days where I will wear a leash, and those are usually days where it's really, really big and I don't want to be stuck out offshore where my kite goes down and I have to release it and I have nothing. I have no kite, no surfboard. I want to have something that I can actually get in safely with. So days where the waves are really, really big, I will wear a leash for my board, but I keep that in the back of my head the whole time and I ride a little more conservatively. And I keep it in mind when I fall, I make sure to push my board away from me and not try to make sure I don't get wrapped up in the lines with my leash or anything of that nature. There are also now good foil leashes that have quick releases, so that might be a good idea for riding a surfboard with a leash out in the ocean. So the other thing when it comes to equipment is your kite leash. How do you wear your kite leash? Do you wear a kite leash? And yes, you should wear a kite leash. When your kite goes down in the ocean, the first thing you want to do is get it up as fast as you can. You usually have a few seconds to get your kite back into the air once you've crashed it. If you've crashed your kite and you didn't get it up fast enough and a wave takes out your kite and swallows it, the thing you want to do is you want to pull all your releases most likely. You pull your first release, let the kite flag out, and if you're still being dragged, you don't want to be drowned by the wave or by pulled or get tangled in your lines, you can pull your secondary release and let your kite just wash to shore. So this is where sometimes having a surfboard leash is nice because then you can paddle in on the board, get to your kite safely. Or it's also very important to ride in teams so that if your kite goes down, it's getting pushed in the shore in the waves, that one of your friends or somebody else that can come and grab the kite for you to make sure it doesn't blow away or get into anybody else and hurt anybody else. Typically, if the wave takes the kite out, it just kind of washes up on the shore and you can get to it in time and reset on the beach and make sure everything's okay. So never go out farther than you're willing or able to swim. That's a very important thing. And along with that is this pivoting spreader bars that a lot of brands have, and you can use this to change when you ride toe side. It'll move the spreader bar out to the side of where your chicken loop position is, and it's very popular in wave riding. Some people prefer it, some people don't. Personally, I like my center of gravity fixed and don't have that swiveling spreader bar, but it is very popular and most people that do ride it really enjoy it. So it is something that if you find yourself having trouble getting toe side and really bent over, that you might want that swiveling spreader bar to the wave, or it's a rope instead of a spreader bar at all, and allow that chicken loop to come over to the side and give you a little bit more freedom of motion. Good. So next I'm going to talk about getting started on your surfboard. So when I get started on my surfboard, I like to throw my board down right before I'm getting ready to go. I don't want to let my board drop my board and like have to get my kite in position and figure it out, because usually there's a current or the waves are coming and it's going to take that board away from you. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can run and jump on your board from the shore, but you know, the basic way is get into the water, get your kite in position above your head. I usually like to start diving my kite before I do anything, and as soon as I dive my kite, I throw the surfboard down and I hop up on top of my board, get my feet flat and push my weight on my back foot, and I already have the kite diving, and boom, I'm up and riding. So it's a very similar method you would do with a twin tip or anything else, but you're just going to do it very quickly, and you want to do it, time it perfectly so that you don't get stuck in waves or the current doesn't rip your board out from underneath you. So now we're going to go into going through and over waves. This is probably the most important part about kite surfing in the ocean, especially on a strapless surfboard, because it is a skill that you're really going to need. It's going to make it, and it's going to be important for you to have a successful session in the ocean. The first thing to think about is you don't always want to try to stay upwind. It's ingrained in us as kite surfers to always try to make way upwind. That's why I really suggest doing a downwinder for your first few sessions, to not think about having to come back to where you started from. This allows you to find the easiest pocket through the waves to where to get out. You're not trying to try to bust through the biggest section of the wave just because that's your upwind tack. You want to find the easiest section that's going to get you through and over the wave with the least resistance. And sometimes this means giving up ground and going downwind to find that section. So just find the nice little easy section and bust through it. That's going to be the easiest way to get through or over a wave. The other thing is, if you're trying to make it through a wave or over a wave and it's just the wave's too big, there's no chance you're going to make it through, you're nervous, this is where you do that chicken tack I was talking about, or chicken jibe, where you're going to be able to turn the kite around real fast and go the other direction. There's two ways to really do it. You could do a down loop, where you actually down loop your kite and just follow it around and get out of the way and just run from the wave, or you could do the normal transition where you bring the kite up and over and just kind of whip yourself and follow the kite around and just try to get out of the way of the big wave. So you know, don't be ashamed to do that. Sometimes you have to do that. If you're just wrong place, wrong time, that you need to do that little chicken jibe, that's going to be important. So let's say you're going out through the waves and you can't find a really easy section, but you think you can make it through, so you're going to try to get through or over this wave. One of the important things I think to do is to really ride slowly. You're not trying to bust through it with speed or power. That's just how you're going to get hurt. You're going to slow yourself down, you're going to bring your kite really high, and you're going to put weight onto your back foot, and you're going to really just try to keep that weight on the back foot and find the spot in the wave where you can get over or through it. Right as the wave starts to get to you, you almost kind of do like what I would say like an ollie with your board, where you kind of kick your back foot and you lift your front knee up into your chest. At the same time as you're doing that, your kite should be coming above your head, almost like as if you're doing a little jump or a little pop off the water. So these are things you could practice in flat water with a twin tip or a surfboard. Just doing little pops, bring the kite out, and just trying to get your body almost weightless. You get weightless, I like to lean back into the harness, into the kite, so that I'm just kind of directing the board with my feet and just kind of pushing the board over the white water. And as soon as you start to feel that you're coming over it and the wave is going underneath you, you're going to crank down that front hand, bring that kite down really low, really fast to pull you out of it. You bring your weight back up into your front foot and you level out and you try to ride away with speed. And then you're ready and you're spotting your next section, because you're probably going to have to do this over and over again. So it's almost like a little skateboard ollie mixed with a little jump with the kite. That's going to get you through and over the wave. And you'd really be surprised what you can get over and what you can get through if you do that properly. I've jumped over some crazy head-high white waters that way, just by directing it and letting the board come up into my chest and my knees up into my chest and riding it right over the wave. So the system I talked about for jumping through and over the wave, it's very similar to what you could do with a twin tip. So it might be a good way to start your first few sessions on a twin tip. It's going to be a little bit easier and probably safer for your first time. And you'll see it's the same basic method, where you just kind of kick, edge, and pop. You bring the kite above you and you just kind of pick your legs up and just kind of ollie over the wave. So if you could do it with the twin tip, pretty comfortably, you should be able to do it with the surfboard as well. You just kind of make it a little bit smaller and softer motion, and you're trying to just keep the board on your feet using the pressure of the whitewater. So go out there, try it with the surfboard, try it with the twin tip, kind of get a feel for it, start on small days, and you can eventually make your way to bigger and bigger waves. The other thing I want to talk about is once you got out, let's say you've made it through the whitewater, you're all the way on the outside, and now it's time to actually ride a wave. So without going into fully on how to wave ride and surf with a kite, there's a few things that to keep in mind. Once you're actually riding a wave and you want to kind of stay and you want to use the power of the wave, this is where having a nice wave kite is important, where you can kind of depower the kite. You can actually stall yourself a little bit and try to stay up on the face of the wave and use the energy of the wave and try to surf it. And then the beauty of having a kite is you can stay like that, and then when you see a section that you want to hit real hard or you want to launch off of, that's when you can engage, power up the kite, do your little air, do your turn off the top, or whatever you want to do. So those are the kind of the basics on how to just ride a wave. The other way is you could stay in front of the wave. So this will allow you to stay in a nice flatter, calmer water, and especially if you're trying to make ground and go back upwind. You stay right in front of the whitewater and you can edge hard and just beat the wave and keep your edge. If you ride on the back of the wave after a wave has already gone through, you're gonna notice it feels like you're going uphill, and it's gonna be choppier and bumpier, and it's gonna be really hard to kind of maintain your power and keep your ground. So if you're riding back in and you're not actually riding on the wave, I highly recommend riding out in front of the wave where the water is smooth and just kind of keeping your speed and trying to stay in front of it so you don't get swallowed by the whitewater. All right, so those are some of the top tips and tricks for riding in the ocean, especially with the strapless surfboards. If you like this video, please, please, please like and subscribe, share this with a friend. Maybe there's somebody out there that you want to do a downwinder with and get in the ocean with, and we'll keep them coming for you.